Michigan State preview, CFP Week 3, and why you shouldn't drink when your wife's 9 months pregnant. All that and more next on Dotting the I with Davis and Chad. What's up, Buckeye Nation, and welcome to Dotting the I with Davis and Chad. We are on episode 35 and coming to you when we play the team up north's little bastard brother, Michigan State. And also we got CFP rankings to talk about. So it's an exciting week here on Dotting the I. What do you say, Davis?
Yeah, I think this is finally getting into the grueling part of the schedule that is really going to tell the tale of what kind of team we are this year and what our future holds for the end of this season, because, you know, it's going to be tough competition the rest of the way through.
I agree. Before we get into this Michigan State game, I want to talk about the CFP that came out on Tuesday night, and it went like this. Number 1, Georgia, 2, Bama, 3, Oregon, 4, Ohio State, 5, Cincinnati, 6, the team up north, 7, Michigan State, 8, Notre Dame, 9, Oklahoma State, 10, Wake Forest, and I'm going to go a little bit farther because I want to talk about it, 11, Baylor, 12 Ole Miss, and 13 Oklahoma. And I'm going to stop there.
Okay. Obviously not a ton of change, especially in the top, 7? I think top 7 remain the same. A few changes. Obviously, Oklahoma dropped 5 spots. I think they're the worst ranked one-loss team in the Power 5. But, I mean, that's kind of expected because they were the worst ranked unbeaten team at that point. But really not a lot of change up front, but I'm going to argue that here in a second, but I want to get your overall take on what you witnessed on Tuesday.
I mean, I will say this as far as consistency goes with the CFP, and I know we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to get all pissed off here in just a minute.
Go figure.
Yeah, of course. But Oklahoma dropping 5 and Ole Miss only moving up 3 and Baylor moving up 2, I think was pretty consistent with what they've kind of said about Oklahoma all year, and that they don't believe in them. They didn't think they were a good team. So at least they stayed consistent with that. And I was a little bit wary of the fact that Texas A&M lost to Ole Miss and dropped only back to 16. But I'm thinking the CFP still wants us to believe that that was a quality loss for Alabama, and they'll do anything in their power to make it look that way.
Oh, I completely agree. It's irritating, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, obviously I'm expecting that to happen. You know, they get the benefit of the doubt. To be perfectly honest, though, the Big Ten has been favorably ranked for the most part this year. You know, I disagree with the fact that Penn State had kind of been left out last week. Now it's irrelevant because they lost again. But I think the committee had mentioned a couple weeks ago they still value that as a good win, that Penn State win. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of top heavy right now. You know, we don't really have a ton of teams in the mix. I mean, Wisconsin's really coming on strong. The last handful of weeks, they're all the way up to 15th, I think. They continue to win, and some of these other teams play each other. I mean, they could potentially be almost a top 10 team by the time Big Ten championship game comes around. So, I mean, you're looking at possibility of 3 top 10 teams in a row. Boom, boom, boom. And there's not another team in the country that's going to be facing that.
I agree, but there was an article that came out on ESPN.com. If you guys get a chance to go check it out, it's by Heather Dinich. On there, she wrote an article basically lining out scenarios for the CFP, talking about, what happens if Alabama loses a close game to Georgia, what happens if Ohio State and Oregon finish with the same record. And I thought it was very interesting, some of the stuff that she said on there. And I kind of want to get your take on a couple things. How do you feel about the fact that she made a statement in there saying that a 2-loss Alabama that loses a close game to Georgia in the SEC championship game would get in over an undefeated Cincinnati and or a 1-loss Big 12 Oklahoma State champion?
So I'm going to obviously disagree with that, and I'm going to try to be as objective as I can about this. Not the fact that, we dislike the SEC and we hate the favoritism that it appears that they get, but I mean, they're treating Georgia like world beaters, like they're impossible to touch. So even getting anywhere close to them means that, well, you've got to be one of the top teams in the country, right? I mean, if under that premise, then what about Clemson? They only lost by 7, and they're a 7-3 team, and they're still not ranked.
Dude, I've
So
said it before. I'm
they're
not sold on Georgia. I'm just
but
not sold.
they're right. So they're not even valuing a close loss for Clemson. And Clemson being a big brand name and being 7-3, kind of starting to come on a little bit throughout the year, they're still not even ranked. So how are you going to use that and then turn around and say, oh, okay, well, then Alabama can go ahead and lose, by 7 or something like that. And, oh, they got to be one of the top teams in the country. Clemson did the same thing at the beginning of the year, and they get no benefit for that. I mean, there's nothing that's saying that, oh, Clemson deserves a lot of credit for keeping that close. I mean, people think Clemson's garbage this year. I mean, obviously they haven't even made the rankings. So
Yeah.
I completely disagree with the fact that, I mean, my opinion is Alabama loses regardless of the outcome. I mean, unless it literally maybe goes into overtime and it's back and forth, and it's like a 2-point conversion difference. Maybe a slight argument, but they still need some other chips to fall in a particular way behind them. But I don't see 2-loss Alabama not winning the conference getting in. I don't.
I wish I didn't see it, but dude, you know how I feel about ESPN and the SEC. And when you've got ESPN writers telling us that that's what they think will happen, I'm pretty sure
Well, that's
that's a real
ESPN
possibility.
writers. The ESPN writers are not on the CFP.
Come on,
And I
dude,
know
you're
that,
not that
listen,
naive.
okay, to an extent. I mean, it does seem that ESPN does a lot of the thinking for some people,
Dude, they have
which
set
shouldn't be
this
the
up from the
case.
beginning. They've set it up this way.
I agree. It does feel like a setup. It does feel like they've continued to do this to build up the resumes of all these teams in the SEC. That's why we continue to see again that the highest ranked team with the most losses of each team is always the team from the SEC. And
Because be
why
honest
one of
with
them
me,
loses and they drop 3 spots, one of them wins and they go up 4.
do
It's
you
either a
agree with this
quality
statement?
win or a quality loss.
Yeah, do you agree with this statement? Because what I'm going to say should tell the tale for the entire thing. And it's a real simple thing. If Ohio State wins out, they will have played how many teams? What, 1, 2, 3 ranked teams in 3 weeks? Okay, and 2 of them in the top 10. Okay,
At
if we
least.
beat every single one of those teams and we win the Big Ten championship, we will still not jump Alabama, whose best win is Ole Miss, I guess.
I agree.
And
I'm
that's
not
the point.
saying that we're getting hated on as much this year. Bama's always seems like they're going to get the benefit of the doubt. What have they missed? Maybe 2 of the total playoffs out of the 7. They've been in 5 of them. So it seems like they're going to constantly get the benefit of the doubt. And I think that's current position. But the real thing that I continue to want to argue about these rankings is the fact that Oregon is above Ohio State and Michigan State is below Michigan. And of course, we've been hearing this for the last week or so since the first time, after Michigan State lost to Purdue, they dropped below Michigan because the head-to-head, or because they believe the head-to-head wasn't the deciding factor. They said that they clearly thought Michigan was a better team, and instead of even watching the game, because they made an interesting comment that they said if you just watch the game or take watching the game and put it aside and you just look at the stats, Michigan's leading in all these categories. Well, what the hell do you think it is the same thing if you do that with Oregon and Ohio State? Who's going to be leading all those categories? It's going to be mostly Ohio State.
True.
And even if you want to sit there and watch the game, I'm not saying Ohio State has played their best football all year long, but their ceiling is so much higher, and they've put on some jaw-dropping performances that you don't see from Oregon. You don't. And I just really believe, and especially from what I hear on a consistent basis, is that a lot of people really believe Ohio State is the better team. So the fact that they do that with the Michigan and Michigan State ranking, and then they want to turn around and continue to put Oregon over top, it mind boggles me. I mean, I even put a poll on Facebook and I said, do you believe, now, of course, I understand these are mostly Ohio State fans to begin with, so it's going to be a little bit biased, but do you believe that Oregon should still be ranked above Ohio State? And out of, I think, 30 votes, 24 of them said no. They think Ohio State should be above Oregon.
Of course they
And
did.
I understand it's going to be a little bit biased, but I
Well, where
think
did I vote?
you voted no. You think
Damn
they
right I
should be
did.
where they're at.
Yes, I do, and I'll tell you why. It's too soon. Okay, if you'd asked me this in 2 weeks, my answer would be different. But you cannot tell me that all of a sudden we beat one ranked team who's ranked number 20, okay, and beat Purdue, whoopity freaking do. And all of a sudden you want to jump Oregon? That does not suffice you beating a head-to-head. It doesn't suffice that. You have to have overwhelming evidence in order for me to put you above a team that beats you head-to-head on a field. I'm
So then
sorry.
where's the overwhelming evidence why Michigan is that much better than Michigan State?
There
Are you
isn't, and
talking?
that's why I had a problem with that to begin with, because I favor the
That's
head-to-head.
my whole problem. Listen, and that's honestly where I'm at. I will be okay with Ohio State being below Oregon if the committee was prioritizing specific criteria. But because they've shown that, oh, we just think this other team's better because of statistics and things that we've seen, and then the head-to-head doesn't matter, but then they're turning around and making the head-to-head matter when clearly I think the eye test and the statistics would favor Ohio State. They ignore that. I can honestly probably pinpoint it to the main reason why I think it's still happening. And it's something that they had mentioned, that they are really valuing winning in Columbus, which is a testament to the respect that Ohio State gets of how hard it is to win on our field. I mean, the last time we lost at home, I believe, was 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
Which is funny because the worst losses we've had that I can remember were at home.
Yeah, but not recently. I mean, they've been more on the road. The Purdue game that we lost was on the road.
Actually,
the Iowa
dude,
game that we lost was on the road.
We played worse at home than
I
we have
agree.
on the road.
I think we do play better on the road typically. But yeah, I mean, what was the last one we lost? Was that maybe the Oklahoma game?
Baker Mayfield playing in the flag year?
Yeah, I believe that's the last time we lost at home before the Oregon game. So I think, our brand name and the home field and playing in Columbus is just viewed as such a huge win that it trumps anything else that they're seeing. And I think that's realistically the only reason they're doing it. It's not because they're just saying straight head to head. I think it would be a different story if we went to Eugene, Oregon, and we lost there by 7, and then everything would remain the same like it is now. I think we probably would be ahead of them. But I think it's strictly from the fact. I honestly believe that, because I think it's just
our resumes are eerily similar right now. And as a matter of fact, they have a better win than we do. And they have the head-to-head.
Yeah, but they have a worse loss. They have a terrible loss.
It doesn't matter. You can't go to that when the loss
because
column is
because
not when they beat you head to head. That's my point.
There's a lot of teams that get. Listen. We can go around the circle on this, but I'm always going to disagree. And let me tell you why I think it is important. Because we can sit here and play out all these different scenarios like you talked about in that article, but let's say that some chaos happens, and because I've told you, and I've told our buddy Chaz that's been on the episode before, and other people, that I really want this rematch, and we're almost primed for a possible rematch in the CFP semifinals. And at that point, it's irrelevant if we're ahead of them or behind them, because if Georgia beats Alabama and we keep doing our thing, Ohio State and Oregon are going to be 2 and 3. It doesn't matter what the order, besides, I guess, whoever wears home jersey, right? So I'm rooting for that scenario to happen. Now, of course, we're saying all of this expecting Ohio State to win out. That's still to be seen, and all of this argument may be for naught. But let's say, for example, that Alabama does beat Georgia. So the first thing here is Georgia's still going to get in. That's almost a consensus. They're a lock, right? Yeah. Alabama's going to move to 1. And at that point, it's going to be very important who is ahead between Oregon and Ohio State, because there's no way they're going to drop Georgia to number 4 and have them play the very next game together, a rematch in the semifinal. They're not going to do that. There's no way. They would drop Georgia to 3, which means
I almost think they would drop them to 2.
Even if 2, it doesn't matter. But at that point, whoever is ahead in the ranking between Ohio State and Oregon then is going to have that matchup with Georgia, and the other one's going to have the matchup with Alabama. So that's why it is going to be important how they do this. Now, in a doomsday scenario that I just mentioned there, I'm okay with Oregon being ahead, because I do want to play Georgia, but I'd rather play them in the national title, because I think Georgia would beat Oregon, in my opinion. I think we would have a legitimate shot against Alabama. I really do this year, because they're not world beaters this year. They're a really good team, and we are a really good team. And I think it would be fairly evenly matched. I agree.
We play like we did last week, and the defense can get some stops, and we don't have a ton of penalties. I really do believe that. But my point, what I want to say is this: I don't want people to think like I'm against Ohio State and I don't want them to be ahead of them. No, I just feel this way. I feel that our resumes are eerily similar, and whether you want to argue it one way or the other is on you. Whether you want to talk about wins, whether you want to talk about losses, head-to-head, conferences, all that stuff, I get it, dude. I get it. And people are saying, well, Ohio State has the number 1 offense. Yeah, I get that. But we're nitpicking. My point is, it's not enough to jump them yet. That's my point.
To an extent, I'm going to agree with you. I don't think it's as big of a difference, but I just still personally feel like if we're going by what's the better team, because they've done that with other teams in the ranking, then put Ohio State ahead, because I think everyone would probably expect if that game were to happen again, Ohio State would be favored. I mean, Ohio State was favored. The first one didn't win. I understand that, but
I would say not yet, and I'll tell you why, dude. My real reasoning why is because I feel that, like I said, the teams match up comparably when you're talking about schedules and things like that. But my point is that I still think that the world has a different view of this team than we do, being so close to it. And that if you look at the scope of the season from the outside looking in, we've had some highs, we've had some lows, and then we've evened out. And then people are like, man, I thought this team was better than that. And we had those, 2 bad weeks coming out of the, coming out of the cupcake games. And then we come out, last week and we look brilliant. I think people are wanting us to lament that. Like, they want to see, can you do it again versus top competition? And if so, maybe then we'll buy in. And that's what I think. That's why I think this week is so important, dude, to us. Not only just because if you lose, your playoff implications are pretty much over. But in the fact that, dude, I think we can make the country believers this week if we can come out and take care of business.
Yeah, I'll be honest, man. I mean, the more you kind of explain through it, I really kind of understand your perspective. And I mean, I'm still going to kind of personally feel the way I want. Shut your mouth. Let me finish.
What the hell? Hold on a second, dude.
No,
hold on a second.
We're moving on. Hey, we're on a time limit.
I left something in my underwear. I don't know what it was.
Well, that's a normal Tuesday for you.
Yeah, continue on.
Okay, so I agree. And at the end of the day, assuming Ohio State wins out, I just want to, at that point, it's not going to matter whether or not we jump Oregon or not, as long as the scenario plays out that I would want to see. I would want to see Georgia beat Alabama, and at least handily enough to where there's not this bullcrap conversation that should Alabama still be in. And I want to see Cincinnati get in. And I want to see that Georgia-Cincinnati matchup. It's going to be a rematch of the bowl from last year, and I want to see Ohio State get a rematch with Oregon. And I think that is the perfect scenario, because I will have a lot of interest in both games. I think we definitely have a really good chance to get past that game and possibly play. I mean, could you imagine an all-Ohio national title game? Could you imagine that?
I got to be honest. At that point, I may have to petition the spouse to let me take out a personal loan in order to buy tickets.
Yeah. I'll just go ahead and sign the separation paperwork. And
yeah, no kidding.
Go ahead
right?
and go ahead and empty out the bank account and fly down there for a weekend.
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask her, don't put my stuff outside. If you could put it in the garage, that way it doesn't get wet, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, but that's not gonna happen. You're gonna come home, it's gonna be all over the yard.
Oh, for sure. I wouldn't expect it any other way.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I want it.
She's probably going to pile it on your golf cart and then just put a brick on the gas pedal and let it go where it goes.
Listen, she can do what she wants to all my stuff, but she better not touch my golf cart. Okay?
She may need that later.
You ain't kidding. So, okay, I think for now, we'll leave that alone. We'll see what happens this week, because I think it's going to be huge. But I think since we've been talking about it, man, it's a good segue to go ahead and talk about this Michigan State game we got coming up.
Yeah, and I messaged you, I think it was yesterday. It might even been this morning. But I wanted to kind of get your gauge on what is your confidence level going into this game. Because I think, that's a big part of a lot of Ohio State fans is, what is your confidence level going in? Not that our confidence level matters to what the team's doing on the field. It's not like we have some sort of magic power that, my confidence level is this, so it's going to equate to what the team does. But, obviously, going into the Purdue game, your confidence level was not super high. Maybe call it 65, 70% confident you guys win the game. Me, I know I didn't get a chance to do it on the episode, but I was really confident in it. I figured we'd cover the 19-point spread, everything else.
Fireball will do that to you.
Fireball do a lot of things to you. So my confidence level is less in this game, even though the spread is almost identical to what the Purdue game was. And it's a lot of it's probably still based in history, just because Michigan State has ruined a handful of our really good seasons. Like, I know Purdue has been a bit of a bugaboo in the past before, but Michigan State has really kind of been the thorn in our foot. If you think back to 2015, our only loss that year, The day or the night my son was actually born. I'll never forget it. So that's November 15th or
Hold
November
on. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
21st,
Since you
2015.
brought it up, hold on a second. Since you brought it up, let's go ahead and tell the fine people this story real quick. Did they know that you rolled into the delivery room smelling like Christian Slater?
Well, if not, they know now.
Davis
So
got his wife pregnant and then had to have her drive him to the hospital.
listen, okay. First of all, baby wasn't due for another 2 weeks. Okay. I had my diaper party that evening, which means a bunch of guys came over, brought a pack of diapers, a bunch of drinks, and we sat and watched the Michigan State game. So unfortunately, it was a close game. I'm nervous. I'm pounding through them pretty good and end up losing the game. Bad mood, everything. Wife calls me up at the time she's working CVS pharmacy, and she's like, I think I'm having contractions. I got to go to the hospital. I'm like, well, you're going to have to come home and pick me up because I can't drive. So she comes home, picks me up, head to the hospital, go up there. They check her, and they're like, she's 7 centimeters dilated. And of course, me, I've never had a kid before. I'm like, so what does that mean?
You're like, ironic because I'm 7 beers deep.
Yeah, at least. So they just took one look at me, almost kind of jokingly, like, are you being serious? Like, this baby's coming tonight. I'm like, what? So sure enough, they get the on-call person in. Wife had a C-section because my son was breech. Within 2 hours, that baby was out, and sure enough, I was in that OR operating the camera, still lit to no end, and it was all a big haze. So
I just want to know something. What was her response when you were like, well, you're going to have to come pick me up?
I don't even know why she even bothered to call me. She knew I was probably hammered because Ohio State was playing. We weren't playing well. It was the diaper party. She knew what kind of condition I was in. I was not at fault. I was not at fault. The baby was not supposed to come that night. So,
oh man, that's hilarious, dude. It's one of my favorite stories. I'll never forget it.
so
Man.
anyways, though, but Michigan State has been a bugaboo for us. I mean, if you even think the second year for Urban when we went to the Big Ten championship game, still unbeaten on that 2-season unbeaten streak, and they ended up beating us. Now the last 5 years, I believe we've definitely gotten the better of them, and barring one close game, they've been almost blowouts. So, my confidence level is still pretty good, but it's definitely a little bit more reserved than it was regarding how I felt about the Purdue game. So I'm kind of about 70% confident in this game. Where are you at?
I'm pretty close, but I'd say I'm a weak 70. You know that, dude. I'm with, like we always talk about, dude. You're always more of a positive light, and I'm always worried to death all the time.
Except for the Michigan game every year.
Except for the Michigan game.
We switch roles in that, and that's the one I'm terrified of.
I feel like Tom Hanks, in A League of Their Own, when he's like, we're going to win. Like, that's how I wake up on Michigan morning. I'm like, we're going to win, but I don't. But this game, man, I have to say it, that opinion I gave you about the rest of the country and the bird's eye view of Ohio State is kind of how I feel personally. It's kind of like, dude, I've tried to fall in love and then seen her with another guy a couple of times this season already. So I'm like, is she going to stay faithful this week? That's kind of like where I'm at. And I think this is a really important week for me and my confidence with this team, dude, because if we can put together a performance like we did last week when everybody is kind of in limbo and doubting us, then I think this is a team that is ready, dude, ready for the challenge ahead. And I'm just waiting to see, dude, is that what's going to happen or not?
Yeah, I think it's important we do really well in this game, not just for the national perspective of just us against Michigan State, but also to show that, Purdue wasn't just kind of like a flash in the pants, like, a one-time deal where we were just all clicking. Like, we need to continue to build off of that Purdue performance and not lay off. We need to continue to be producing over 500 yards of offense, to have better red zone efficiency, to be posting 40-plus points a game, even in these, tougher matchups. And I think that consistency then is going to make more a believer of, not just people around the country and everything, but also more believers of the kids in the locker room. They're like, hey, now we're doing this against this stiffer competition. Now we're believing that we can really do this against anyone. Because, it's been no secret. Our tougher matchups this year, we haven't played our best. It's not we're still coming out on top, and in some cases we're coming out on top, pretty decent, but if we're playing to the full potential of what this team really is capable of, we should be borderline blowing a lot of these teams out, in my opinion. We really should. I mean, am I wrong in that assumption, or are you kind of feeling the same way?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I feel like we've gone through a lot this season, like growing pain wise. Just kind of like I feel like it's not just with the team as well. I think it's with the coaching staff trying to figure it out. We tried to figure out the defense at the beginning, and then I feel like the play calling was kind of sour, and they kind of got that changed right around. And then it was kind of like, okay, well, we got everything working a little bit, but maybe our O line struggling a little bit with the pass rush, things like that, dude. And I feel like we've just continually had a different issue, like to work on a severe issue. As a matter of fact, I'd call it a severe issue for most of the season. But I feel like last game, I mean, we talked about, we completely accepted the fact that the defense is going to be what it is. Okay, I think we're all okay with it going forward. It is what it is. So, but we know what this offense can be, and I think that's the real point here. And if that offense clicks on cylinders, dude, all cylinders, we should score this many points on everybody. And we should have beat some of the teams we played by a ton more than we did. So my question is, dude, is this here to stay? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't really know what our ceiling is yet because I think we've seen it in spurts on both sides of the ball. It's kind of like when we get one thing going, something else kind of goes wrong. We get another thing going, something else kind of goes wrong. But it's very apparent, though, that as long as we keep our running game going, then we're going to be in good shape. That almost seems like kind of the backbreaker for this team, in my opinion. The only game at all this season that we ran the ball well, but we still kind of struggled offensively was the Tulsa game. And I think that was a little bit of an outlier, to be honest with you, because it kind of seemed like in that game, if you remember, they really played a similar defense like Northwestern did against us last year in the Big Ten championship game. And we had to kind of do the same thing, run for record numbers because that's exactly what they set up, to do on defense. But that's the biggest catalyst for me is this running game's got to stay consistent for everything else to kind of fire on all cylinders, so to speak.
Let me ask you this then. Give me your synopsis of how we're going to do on offense versus Michigan State and how they're going to do on offense versus versus us. How do you see that playing out this week?
Well, Michigan State, it's kind of a new Michigan State kind of team that we're not used to seeing. Because if you remember in previous years, it seems like this is the game that it's going to be really hard to gain points on Michigan State. But at the same token, they don't always have the best offense, not the best quarterback play, some decent running backs, maybe one decent receiver, but for the most part, you weren't going to get us, super scared of Michigan State's offensive proficiency, right? And it's kind of shifted a little bit to where it's almost a balance now. It's like the defense isn't as good as it used to be with Michigan State overall, and more specifically in the defensive backfield in their passing defense. Okay, they're still pretty good in the run defense, but the passing defense has struggled a little bit this year. But at the same time, their passing game and the running game has even improved to where what you said, they're averaging 34 points a game in the Big Ten, second in the Big Ten behind Ohio State. So,
Yep.
They're a different team that we're not used to seeing. So it's going to be interesting that I think we're going to get our yards on them. And I think another key is going to be, can we continue to be efficient in the red zone and get 7 instead of 3? But I also think that we're going to be giving up more yards or more points to Michigan State that we're not used to. So I think both offenses are probably going to get very close to what their average is. I mean, Ohio State obviously averaged 550 yards per game. I think we're going to be close to that again. And Michigan State averages 450 yards of offense, and I think they're going to be close to that as well. So I think both offenses are going to be able to move the ball pretty willingly. I think the big tail of this game is going to be what happens in the red zone. It's going to be turnovers, and it's going to be a little bit of field position, to be honest with you. Simply marching the ball down the field and scoring is nice, but at least marching the ball a little bit down the field and then pinning them deep and forcing them to have to go the entire length of the field. Old Urban Meyer, field position is important. All the statistics, it all makes sense. And it's just, it's going to be a different feel than a typical Michigan State, Ohio State game, in my opinion, for those reasons.
So my opinion on this game is kind of how we respond to their passing attempt. Like we talked about, Michigan State's a balanced team. They're going to run and they're going to pass. They're going to try both all day long. And I'm not worried about us against the run. I'm really not. We've done excellent against the run thus far. I am, however, worried about us putting pressure on the quarterback and also in the zone as far as assignments go, and trying to limit big plays. But I think that's what we're going to do. Or we're going to do the same thing again. I feel like almost similar to what we did last week. Now we're going to mix it up, obviously, because they're a more balanced team. But I think it's, can we limit big plays? Can we keep everything in front of us? And on offense, I think we're going to do what we want to do. I don't think we're going to come out firing on all cylinders. I don't think we're going to come out and score on the first drive with a 75-yard touchdown run. I just don't see it happen. I see us feeling each other out for a little bit. But I still think that the over-under in this game should be like, I think it's like 60, but I think it should be like 70.
I think it's 68.5. It's 68.5.
I would take 70 for the over and under. Like, that's pretty close to me. Maybe even 75. I think there's going to be some scoring in this game, but I think that like you said, I do agree with the red zone thing. I really think that that's going to be a huge key to this game. But to me, my biggest key, and it's going to be my biggest key going forward in almost every game, is can our defense stop anybody? Can they stop anybody that can throw the ball? We have seen a lot of passing teams. We've seen a lot of running teams this year, but we haven't seen a team quite like Michigan State that's a little bit more balanced than everybody else. So I want to see, how do we adapt to that defensively, and can we keep them out of the end zone? To me, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you on something that you did mention. I think you mentioned that we're really good with our running defense and we're more concerned with the passing defense. And I'm actually going to reverse the roles a little bit. And let me explain why. Even though I agree, I think we're better at pass defense than we are. I'm sorry. I think we're better at run defense than we are pass defense. But the last time I think we faced a really good running offense was Oregon, and look what they did to us. Now, obviously, I know we've changed a lot since then, and we've looked better, but I don't think we've faced a running offense as good as Oregon since then. This is going to be the equivalent, if not better. And I think this is going to be a kind of running game that, I think, the makeup for Michigan State to try to pull off this win is going to have to be through Kenneth Walker. It's going to have to be. And he's averaging over 140 yards a game, and they're going to need that out of him plus some, I would assume. In order to do that, he's not going to be able to just run through the tackles 30 times a game. I mean, they're going to have to find creative ways to get him the ball. It could be some screen passes. It could be some finicky trick plays, stuff like that. I mean, they're going to find a bunch of different ways to get him the ball and get him the ball, maybe not right up the middle, more out on the edges. So my main concern is going to be, how are we going to corral him and keep him from breaking a long one? Because, he's going to be hard enough just to keep, 2-3 yards gain, and that's it. So the problem that I see coming into this game could potentially be that even if he doesn't break a long one, if he keeps getting these first downs, they can eat up the possession clock. And they can continue to keep our offense off the field. And even if we are extremely efficient in offense, if we're only getting the ball, 4 or 5 times before the end of the half, that can really limit what kind of damage we can do. And if they keep this thing close, especially into the second half, anything can happen. So I'm more worried about how we handle the running more than the passing.
Well, I know what you're saying. I get it. I just don't believe that they're going to do that. If you look at the blueprint against Ohio State, it doesn't say run the ball against us. It says throw it. So while I do agree that I don't think Kenneth Walker is not going to get the ball handed to him 30 times and run up the gut. That's not going to happen. Like you said, they may do some more passes, some swing passes, some screens, some stuff in the flats. I can see that to try to get him into space. I definitely can see that. But dude, you'd have to be an idiot to not look at Ohio State film and want to pass the ball. They're not going to run the ball 30 times.
I understand that. I'm not saying they're not going to pass the ball, but I feel like as long as we can corral that running game, because, again, I think the big part of that is if you can run the ball well, you can just absorb a ton of time of possession. And the more time they have the ball, that's the less time our offense has the ball, and the less time that our offense has the ability to try to, run up the score and make it to where Michigan State can't catch us.
I get that, but if they come out and decide, hey, we're going to run the ball a little bit, but we're going to throw the ball 45 times, we're giving up 30 points when that happens. So unless our offense is clicking on all cylinders and we score 40 or 50 points, we're going to be in a dogfight.
Yeah, I mean, it could go both ways, and I mean that's kind of going to be the danger with Michigan State, like you mentioned, is the balance. Like, what are we going to take away?
We haven't seen that really. Like,
well, I think their running game is better than their passing game, but their passing game is good enough that it complements the running game, where you have to be honest with both of them. So that's going to be, I mean, a lot of there's going to be a lot of pressure on the linebackers this week. And I think a lot of pressure on the D line to get pressure on the quarterback and to kind of put, win in the trenches to try to make it even harder for Kenneth Walker to start getting yards even before contact. Like, we need to be contacting him very early before he gets ahead of steam and starts rolling.
Yeah. As far as Ohio State goes, I think we will be more pass heavy this game than we usually are. Now, I think we will run. I think that Travion will get his carries. He'll get 100 yards. I'm sure he will. And they will rotate him and Maya Williams. I get that. But I think we will lean slightly more towards the pass versus Michigan State, dude. They are not good against the pass, giving up 329 a game. And I think that we're going to exploit that with, a Heisman candidate, quarterback, and some of the best receivers in the nation.
I agree with you. I would just slightly switch a little bit and say that even though I know we're going to focus a lot on the pass, again, I've said it for weeks, our blueprint for our success is that the running game has to work. I'm not saying
you have to
the running game has to be featured, but I've almost put it, as long as we can run for about 200 yards as a team on the day, then we're going to be in good shape. So, yeah, if we can do that 200 yards rushing, 350 yards passing, that's our average. That's our 550 yards a game, and I think that's the blueprint. We don't need to be having a 450-yard passing day and a 100-yard rushing day. If we get into that kind of game against Michigan State, that's where I think we're going to be in trouble.
Well, Michigan State only gives up about 115 rushing yards per game.
Yeah, but who have they faced that's had really good running backs? I mean, maybe Wisconsin. Anyone else you can think of? Purdue had no running game, and they got beat by Purdue.
Well, Purdue can throw the hell out of the ball.
And so can we. Yeah, but
yes, we can.
Well, I'm just saying, listen, there's a lot of factors that are going into this game, and there's a lot of chess match that's going to be played in this game. I think this is going to have to be a really good coaching job by Coach Day and on the defensive end of the ball of, kind of playing to figure out, use the first couple of drives, like you said, to feel them out, but really kind of see what they're doing and make a lot of in-game adjustments. And it's just going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see, dude. I'm excited for it.
I'm excited for it too. I worry about, I don't know if you noticed this or not this season, but we're not doing a ton of on-the-fly adjustments defensively during the game. We're adjusting at halftime.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that, but at the same time, some of these adjustments may be happening but are small enough that we just can't see. Maybe it's simply an execution adjustment of saying, hey, listen, you were supposed to be hitting this gap.
Maybe it's just an attitude adjustment.
It could be. It honestly could be. Who knows? But this is a very interesting game from a lot of perspectives in here, and it's probably one of the first games all season where you can really take two top Heisman candidates heads up against each other. I mean, this is a game, I know we didn't really reference it, but this is a game that I think is going to vault one or the other into almost the lead for the Heisman. If CJ comes out and has a hell of a day and, throws for another 4 touchdowns and 300 yards, I think that's going to put him in the lead. And I think at the same token, if Kenneth Walker comes out and rushes for 200 yards and 3-4 touchdowns, and especially if we get upset somehow, I mean, that's going to vault Kenneth Walker up into kind of the lead. So this is a big game from not just the team aspect, but from also a Heisman aspect.
Yeah, I agree. The way I see it going down, I don't see either running back having a signature career day. I just don't. I think this game is going to be more through the air on both sides of the ball. I think they're going to try to throw on us because I would, and I think that we're going to throw on them because I also would.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'll just respectfully disagree that I do think they will throw the ball, but I think they're going to try to feature Kenneth Walker as much as possible. I mean, you'd almost be stupid to not do that. Even though I know you could get some in the air through Ohio State, you got a running back like that, you've got to find a way to get him the ball. You have to. You can't ignore him. Last time we did something like that, what happened? We didn't feed Zeke Elliott the ball in 2015, and we lost to Michigan State. You got an athlete like that, you need to feed him the ball.
Like I said, he'll get his carries. He'll get 100 yards, but he won't have a career day. The game is not going to rest on him. It's not going to be won with him.
I hope you're right, but I just have a sneak suspicion. I think he's going to have a pretty big day. I'm just going to hope that we can kind of outshoot him a little bit.
So what do you think about this spread at 19?
I think it's a very hefty spread, and I mean, it's the same spread they had against Purdue. Now, I understand I felt more confident with the Purdue game, and I can understand why that spread was there, even though I know it still surprised a lot of people. But I don't know anyone that's touching this spread. I've not even found one person anywhere that said that they would take, they would take Ohio State or giving up 19. No one. So I don't know. It's a very interesting one. Not sure what Vegas is seeing in that. Honestly, my take is I still see this, if we play the best of our ability, we could potentially cover that. But even if we just play a solid game, I think it's going to be around the 14, 15, 16, 17 point difference. And that's about as much as I could possibly see it being.
Okay, well, let's just get to it then. Before we get into prop bets here, give me the final score prediction.
Kind of piggybacking off of everything I've said up to this point, I think we're going to be able to get our yards. I think a lot of the score is going to be predicated on how we do in the red zone. Are we settling for threes? Are we getting touchdowns? Are we going for it on fourth down and converting? Are we getting empty trips? Are there turnovers that are killing drives that, it's just dead yards that we're getting in the game that don't equate to points? I mean, if you remember in Oregon, we had over 600 yards of offense and scored 28 points. That's going to be the big key here, but I think we've been trending more in the right direction of trying to fix some of these things and come away with 7 more than 3. So I'm going to call this game 45-31 Buckeyes.
Well, surprisingly, we are eerily similar. When we talked earlier and you were like, oh, do you think we were talking about possible prop bets and we were talking about the over-under of them scoring, being 30. And I was like, I'm not touching that. And that is because I literally picked 31.
Yeah.
But I picked 42 for the Buckeyes. So my prediction is going to be 42-31. I think that we will score, but I think we're going to give up some stuff. I really do. I think it's going to continue to be the same thing. I don't think we're going to be able to quite do what we did against Purdue, against Michigan State, offensively. But I do think that we're still going to have a solid day. But I think it's going to be a much closer game, dude. I really do. Because they can score. I know they can score.
I feel like it's going to be a little bit closer. It's going to feel a lot tighter for more of the game, for sure. Now, I will say this, and I know this isn't necessarily something that we have to start doing, but I kind of want to, just for fun in this one, give in a best case circumstance, what would you give a score prediction assuming that we play some of our best football this Saturday? Now, I know we're going more realistic, kind of a safer, what we think is more realistic. But if you thought they really played well, what do you possibly think that score could look like? Because I think that's more maybe where Vegas is coming from with their 19-point spread.
That would be close. I still wouldn't put it in 19. I would think if we played like the best, I still see it like maybe 52-35.
I'm going to disagree. You got to be able to loosen up a little bit on this one. I'm talking best case scenario, defense playing a lot better,
The defense can play as good as they want. We're still giving up 25, 30 points.
I'm going to take I'm not going to agree with that. I think best case scenario for this game could be something like 52-14. And
14?
52-14. That's
against the number one running back in the Big Ten and a guy that can throw the ball.
That's best case scenario. Listen.
Well, the best case scenario would be 150,000 to nothing.
There's not enough minutes in the quarter to do that. Listen. I didn't mean to get too far off topic there, but
you should have said the best realistic.
Watch, seriously, watch us win 52-14. Just watch it. I mean, it's not going to happen, but I'm just saying that would be.
I promise you this much right now, and this goes for everybody on the podcast that's listening out there. If we win 52-14, and I mean this. First of all, I will publicly apologize on the next podcast, and then I will clean your Jeep with a toothbrush. The whole thing.
God, come on, D.
You heard it here first.
We need you this weekend.
You heard it here first.
So speaking of bets here, or things that we'd have to pay up on, we've got our prop bets back. I know we've taken a few weeks off. We've had some chaos going on, but we finally established new prop bets.
Just for the old cobwebs off of her.
Yeah, so again, for those of you who may not know, we do 3 prop bets for each game. Best out of 3 wins it, and we put something on the line. Usually it's something funny or something small, nothing too major, but at least something that's interesting and fun to kind of bet on. What we decided to do for this one is the loser of this one has to be the other person's beer bitch next time we are watching a game together or next time we're both in town together. And that means, as Chad said, when we were talking about this earlier, no matter what you're doing at that point in the day, if I want a beverage, I say, I need you to get me a drink. And what are you supposed to reply?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And there's no, I don't care if you're in the middle of something, you could be on the toilet. Listen, the toilet paper comes second. My beer comes first, right?
That's it. Pinch it shallow and wipe it deep. I need a beer.
Yeah. Now, see, the thing is, I know both of us, and we'll over abuse this rule too, for sure. To the point of the other person be like, listen, I'll just give you money if you quit it.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm going to say I'm going to need a beer. And when you bring it to me, I'm going to be like, this one ain't cold enough. Give me another one.
Yeah. Yeah. And then all I'll have to do is say, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I really hope I don't lose this one. But I have a feeling because I took some risks this week. So
You did. You got a little brave.
I did. So here are the 3 bets. The first one is sacks. And sometimes we just kind of set our own numbers, what we're feeling. I set the sack, Ohio State, how many sacks do we get? At 2.5. And I felt like we're going to try to fix the issue from last week, not getting any sacks and get more pressure. And I have a feeling we're going to get 3 or more. And Chad believes we will not, so he's taking 2 or less sacks. So that is the first prop bet. The second one is Ohio State passing yards. And this one, again, is interesting because Michigan State doesn't have the best pass D. They're giving up an average of 329 yards per game. I think this one I'm feeling a lot more confident in that. I think we will get 329 yards or more in passing. Chad thinks for some reason that we will not get that many. I think maybe he went a little bit of a stretch on that one, but maybe he's right. I don't know. And then finally, the last one is who will have the most receiving touchdowns for Ohio State? Chad says Olave. I say Garrett Wilson. And if there's a tie, the tiebreaker will be whoever had the most catches. And if that's a tiebreaker, then we go to who had the most yards. And that is the 3 prop bets for this week. So best 2 out of 3, whoever wins that. The other one is the beer bitch next time we are together.
Yeah, we will be putting probably a piece of that on Facebook too. I plan on recording it if you got to get it for me. That's for sure.
Well, I'm sure you will.
Oh, I'm sure I will too. So, okay, I'm excited, man. As much as we complain and argue and biatch about, football together, at the end of the day, we're Ohio State fans. I'm excited about the game. I can't wait. I think it's going to be a good game, dude. And, I don't want to blow everybody out. I know I may be in the minority when I say that. I don't. I like good football. I like good matchups. I like talking strategy. And I think this is the perfect game this season for that. I'm looking forward to it. It sucks, dude. It sucks, like, the way that it melted down this season with our schedule to where the meat of our schedule is really like a 3 to 4 week period. You know what I mean? Where we're really, really at the precipice of the season. But this is my favorite time of the year, dude. So I'm super excited, man. Can't wait.
Yeah, I am too. I think this game is going to be as advertised. I really do believe that. I don't think it's going to be really one-sided either way. And it's a noon game. And I'll be honest, I've really come to really enjoy the noon games. One, because I get to day drink and I have an excuse for it. But 2 is I hate the anticipation and waiting for a night game sometimes. You know what I mean? And just out of nerves and just excitement for the game, it's like the day takes forever and I'm not really sure what to do with myself. And I'll try to watch other games. And then finally, by the time the game comes, it's almost like there's a little bit of a letdown. Like I'm having a hard time getting remotivated back for it again. But it's like that noon game, man, it's like I wake up, get a good breakfast, have a couple drinks, and then boom, game time, we're ready to roll. So I'm looking forward to it. Definitely going to, I think it's going to be a solid one, maybe one that we remember.
I hope so, man. I hope that we remember freaking shouting to the mountaintops in victory. You know what I mean? Not one of the ones like Jesus. You remember in 2021 we got our ass kicked by Michigan State? Jesus Christ,
Well, as long as no one is having a kid on Saturday, then we're fine. Because I think having the kid on the game during the game is kind of been my Achilles heel. But I've already had my daughter. She came early. We're good to go. Everyone's healthy. So hopefully it's going to equate to a good game on Saturday.
Davis, tell them where they can find us.
All right, guys, as always, you can catch all these episodes on all major streaming services, Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. We also post these on YouTube as well, and occasionally we will be putting out video episodes, so don't be afraid to get on YouTube and check those out. And we also do a lot of stuff on our Facebook page. We do polls, we do pictures, we do some other things for insight. So if you haven't gotten a chance, head on over to Dotting the I with Davis and Chad on Facebook and like our page so you can see that content. And until next time, guys, we're going to keep doing what we do, and we really enjoy the support, and we're looking forward to the next episode. So until then, guys, go Bucks. OH.